Pesachim Daf Chaf Aleph, two emails from two newbies to the shir. First one is Agutta Vach from Los Angeles, Shlomi Smilo. Shalom Avrach, I've been doing the dab, but decided to join you on YouTube, and I've been enjoying it immensely since the beginning of Pesachim. Goes on and he says with much appreciation, Shlomi Smilo. Second one is from Zev Gruber from South Tottenham, London, also new to the shir. He says, amazing shir, I'm new to the shir, starting Pesachim, keeping it up, and won't go to bed without doing the daf through the shir. May you go from Chayil Chayil. Thanks, Zev Gruber. Rabbi Yisai, we're at the very end of the sugya of Tumas and Tyrus, and I promise you, if you're able to do this sugya, you can do any sugya in Shas. The famous case of a vat above another vat, and on the top vat, there's a barrel of Truma wine. And in the barrel, there's a hole that sprung a leak, and it's starting to leak into the lower vat. The lower vat has chulin wine, that's tamei. Once the upper wine will reach the lower wine, it will be usher to use. If you can run home and grab a kli that's tahar, do so, even though that means that you'll lose most of your wine, you'll just be able to save a revius. But if you don't have an option of finding a kli that's tahar, we have a machlekes whether or not you can use a kli that's tamei. According to Rabbi Shua, you save whatever you could save, even though you're metama the truma wine, but you're saving all the wine below. It's a great monetary loss. We allow you to do so. According to Rabbi Eliezer, it's usher. Comes along Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina and says, I want to qualify this. There's a concept when it comes to truma, that truma is batal in 100. That is, that if wine of truma, one barrel fell into 100 barrels, it's no longer truma. All you need to do is take out one barrel worth of wine from the 101 barrels and give it to truma. So in this case, if there were, in fact, the whole machlokes must be less than 100 barrels in the lower vat. Because if there are 100 barrels, then everybody will agree, do not save the truma. Because nothing's going to happen. It's going to fall into the bottom vat, and it will remain chulin that's mutter to use. According to one lashon, it's Rabbi Yeshua that admits to Rabbi Eliezer that you don't save in this case. According to another lashon, we're not talking about saving with a tamei kli, rather we're talking about saving with a tar kli, but with a twist. This tar kli is tar in the inside, but tamei on the outside. How? It became tamei through mashim de rabbanan. I would think that according to Rabbi Eliezer, I should be machmer, I should be geyser and say, well, what if the truma touches the outside, it become tamei? We're not choishish. And with that, we finish the first parak of Pesachim and the famous sugya of Chananya Zgan HaKohanim, Tuma and Tahara. Hadron alach or larba asar. And now, parak kolsha. We had this Mishnah in the past, and now we're Masechta. As long as you're permitted to eat chametz, says the Mishnah, you're permitted to give it to your animal, to your behema, chaya, va'oif. The Gemara says that this Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel is of the opinion that in the 5th hour, Klal Yisrael is not allowed to eat chametz, but kohanim are permitted to eat truma chametz. And that's because you're not allowed to destroy chametz with your own hands, so they allowed the kohanim to eat. So that's the pshat in the Mishnah. As long as the kohen is permitted to eat his truma, you're permitted to give your chametz to your animal. However, it doesn't go according to Rabbi Yehuda or Meir. According to Rabbi Yehuda, in the 5th hour, you're not permitted to eat, but you're allowed to give it, you're allowed to feed it to your animal. And according to Rabbi Meir, you're allowed to eat and feed it to your animal, but the problem is that the Mishnah shouldn't have said the word mutter. Mutter means we're talking about somebody else. That's why it makes a lot more sense to say goes according to Rabbi Gamliel. When the kohen could eat, you could give it to your animal. Now, the reason why the Mishnah said chaya, behema, oif, chaya usually is used to hiding food. And therefore, I would think that if it hides the food, you might be over in Bal Yirah. If it comes up during Pesach, I'm not concerned. And the chiddush with the behemoth is the reverse. Behemoths don't hide their food. So perhaps you'll be over in two on Bal Yirah and Bal Yamatzah. I'm not concerned. And it says birds just because it says chaya and oif. Says the Mishnah that when you're permitted to benefit from chametz, you're permitted to sell to the guy. And it's a tremendous chiddush. Beis Shammai hold that 30 days before Pesach, you can't just sell chametz to a guy. If you're sure that he's going to consume it, then you could sell to him. But if you're not sure, and the chametz remains in the guy's possession during Pesach, you're over. According to Rabbi Yehuda, something called kutach, sounds like an unbelievable food. Moldy bread with sour milk, it's a dip. And this dip lasts for a while, so you got to be very careful with it. Rabbi Yehuda holds like a Beis Shammai, but they still hold, as long as you're permitted to eat chametz, you're permitted to sell it. I don't care what the guy does with it. Says the Mishnah that if you take chametz and you burn it to a point where you can't recognize it and it doesn't taste the same, according to Tosfos, that means it's not re'el achilas kelev. According to Rashi, not so much. You're permitted to benefit from that chametz even at the time that it's usher to eat chametz. But if the time of the Rabbanan came and went, in other words, during the 6th hour, it's the time of the Rabbanan, you're not allowed to eat chametz from the Rabbanan. What happens if you take that chametz and you mekadesh a woman with it? So Midaraisa, she's Aisha Sish. Halachically, she's not Mekudesh. Even if you use Chitik Kedurneyaisa, it's very hard to make that wheat, it's tough wheat to make it chametz. She's not Mekudeshes. Why? Because Kolam Kaddish Adat the Rabbanim Kaddish. Hefker Bez and Hefker. When you Mekadesh a woman, you do it with your mind to whatever Chachamim say. Chacham said she's not Mekudesh, therefore they remove the Kedushin. The Mishnah says once it's asur to benefit from chametz, you're not allowed to heat up your oven, your tanner, v'kirayim. One has one burner, two burners. What's the chiddush? The chiddush is even according to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that there's a mitzvah to burn chametz. So I would think that while you burn the chametz, I'll have a slight benefit from it. I'll heat up my house or something. No, you're not allowed to benefit from it. So Rabbi Yehuda holds there's a mitzvah to burn, and Chachamim hold you could take the chametz, throw it into the wind, throw it into the ocean. You're also yaitz. And now we're going into a sugya that's going to last for a few daf. It's a beautiful sugya that's going to take us on a wild ride through Shas, through many, many halachas of Isser Achila. And we're discussing Isser Achila and Isser Hana, benefiting from chametz and many, many other Yisurim. How do we know that you're not allowed to benefit from chametz? So we have machlokes. According to Chizkiah, because chametz, in the pasuk of chametz, it says, Lo ye'achel. It should have said, Lo ye'achal. Ye'achal is a very interesting lashon to teach us that it's also not only to eat, but also to benefit from chametz. Rabbi Avon says, anytime it says any lashon of achila, yoichal, soichal, soichlu, it means not only that you can't eat it, but you can't benefit from it. Until the Torah teaches you specifically, like it teaches us by an avela. The Torah says don't eat an avela, and then it goes on to say you could give it to a ger, somebody that accepts upon himself shava mitzvahs b'nei noyach, but it still eats an avela, and sell it to a guy. In other words, you're permitted to benefit from it. Rabbi Yehuda says, since the Torah says the word oy, so the Torah is teaching us dvarim k'ksavam. It's exactly as is. You could give it to a ger and sell it to a guy, but you cannot give it for free to a guy and you can't sell it to a ger. Reb Meir says the fact that you give it to a ger and sell it to a guy is, I learned from the word oy that that's the order. That in other words, it's better to give it to a ger rather than selling it to a guy, but you don't have to. You could also sell it to a ger. You could give it to a guy if you want to. And Rabbi Yehuda says that's common sense. Since you're mechuyev to support a ger, he accepted upon himself mitzvahs, he's part of Klal Yisrael, then you must give it to the ger first. According to Reb Meir, we learn from nevela because the Torah specified by nevela. Typically, it should be asur b'hana because it says the word. But by nevela, I gave you special dispensation. You're permitted to benefit from it. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, since it's dvarim k'chsavam, so how do I know this concept that all over the Torah, when it says lo yoichal, you cannot benefit? We learn from treifa. Treifa, it says that you can't eat a treifa, but you could give it to your dog. Like Isai comes to say dafka by treifa, you're allowed to give it to the dog. Any other place in the Torah, you're not permitted. Have a wonderful day.